Recording stopped.
Somebody else is running the show up there. Are we already hacked? Is that y'all?
No, we're good.
Who's running the stuff on the screen?
We are, but it's this Read AI thing that pops up always, and we have to take it off. Okay, 5:30, you're live.
Okay. Good evening, fellow citizens of the Village of
Recording in progress.
Ruidoso and the County of Lincoln and other interested parties, and welcome to the 2025 State of the Village Address. We have some good news, and we're going to take a brief look back to the last year that, in retrospect, you have a lot of profound sadness and immense joy in where we're headed at today, because so many things have worked wonderful. We saw neighbor helping neighbor. We saw communities helping other communities. And overall, I think we're in a really good spot. Through the dark times that we've had here, we've seen the true spirit of Ruidoso, the real warrior pride that we have in this community. And again, we owe so much thanks to so many different people. A lot of you are in this room right here, and we do have a few online. So again, my thanks to you. It does me real proud to know that I'm the mayor of such a wonderful community where people come together. Because you can just see what's happening around the country in North Carolina, what's happening in California, and the reports of people that are not prepared, things that should have been done that weren't. And I'm proud to say that we have been prepared, that long before this, through the fires that we've had in the past, going all the way back to the flood of 2008, the Little Bear Fire, the McBride Fire, that we have been very well prepared. We can always be more prepared, and that's some of the other things that we look at in the after-action reports that we've done from the fire. What do we do well? What do we need to do to prepare better for? And what did we not do at all? So I want to share some remarkable examples of our community's resilience. Our Emergency Operations Center operated continuously for 111 days during the South Fork Salt Fire and then the floods that happened afterwards. So if you think about that as a lot of man hours, a lot of extra time that we ask our village employees to do, and they did it without question. Many sleepless nights, working around the clock at the Emergency Operations Center, doing what was asked of them. Our departments performed outstandingly. For example, the water department, in so many instances, if they hadn't have been there, we would have lost our water system. And they were there to make sure that we didn't get a contaminated water system. Many of the folks were looking, how do we get our water back on? And if it were not for the quick action of the water department, the streets department, we wouldn't have been able to get back online as fast as possible. We also had round-the-clock coverage on our KRUI radio station, 1490 AM, where we were available for calls, where we were taking any and all questions that we could get to see how fast we could get the answer. And yes, a lot of the times we didn't have all the answers, but we did the best we could to get them where we were at. And I feel very good, just compliments and conversations that we've had after the fire, that people understand the trauma that was going on, the tragedy that was in hand, and just what the staff had done. And then indeed the partners that we had throughout the community with our other independent contractors that we were able to hire and get people in action very quickly. We've now seen through the other tragedies around the country that a lot of places weren't as prepared, and the response is even longer. Our police department and fire department exceeded all expectation during the fire and floods. The fire department is now fully staffed for the first time in years. And that's really saying something, folks, and we really are happy about that. And soon we'll have its first honor guard in the 75 years that it's been in existence. And so that we're moving forward. Also, the fire department and other responders in the community have been training for swift water rescue that we around here never thought that we would need. But after we saw what happened during the floods, it became clear it was a necessity. We also have our own Red Cross division that is established here in Ruidoso. It's not a question of if, we all know it's when we will have another fire. And then the next few years are very critical, the next 3 to 5 years with our regrowth on the burn scars, our mitigation efforts that we're taking into account on just how well we're going to be able to withstand the rains in the future. Looking to ahead to 2025, we're not just rebuilding, we're creating a stronger, more resilient Ruidoso. With regards to recovery, rebuilding, and mitigation, here's some things that I want you to know. We're expanding our emergency preparedness. 9 new outdoor warning sirens will be installed to enhance our emergency notification capabilities. And we're working very diligently on a mobile command unit, and we're asking that out of our capital outlay funds. Now, what is this? Well, when we lost all power, all communications followed, internet, cell phone, and it was only through quick action from a contact that we had in El Paso that we were able to get a command unit down, that we were able to get communications outside the village. And then working with our local telephone, Verizon, AT&T, and others, that we were able to get the remote cellular units. So we're looking to have one of our own that we can also use not only in our community, but surrounding communities. Also, I want to talk about flood mitigation. There's a lot of questions coming on and asked about when can we rebuild? When can we get our building permits? And so this is looking forward to 2025. We're in the process of design, working with FEMA, the Army Corps, also DHSEM, which is the Department of Homeland Security, which is a state agency, on detention, retention ponds, trash racks, things of that nature, that when we do get the rains next year, and we need the rains, we need the snow, so we know we're going to have runoff. So how are we best going to handle those things? Those are things that are worked on right now. We've already signed work orders, and engineering is being done on well over $140 million worth of projects. Those are all to be started. Some of them are already in place, some have been completed, but we have many, many more to do. The floodplain, that's a big portion of, are we going to be able to rebuild? When are we going to be able to get our building permits? The village on its own through grant funding, and I want to thank our senior staff for going after the funding. I want to also thank Ashley Carbajal, which is our floodplain manager. She's done an outstanding job. We were able to get a grant where we were able to hire an independent engineering firm, Cobb Finley. And if you've been around the community, you've seen their trucks. They've worked day and night, 7 days a week, to get this floodplain and floodway documented so that we can then turn it into FEMA. And then once it's looked at by FEMA, it will be adopted by the Village of Ruidoso Council. That will then in turn give us the ability, through the Construction Industry Division of the state of New Mexico, to start issuing building permits, because we know so many people that are along the river, drainage areas that for years never had any water running, which now become a torrent of water when we have the smallest amount of rain, they're able to decide and be told that they can be insured, get building permits, financing on either repairing their structure or rebuilding it. So if you're not able to rebuild, what happens then? Well, we're working on funding. We've requested a lot of funding in the millions of dollars, hundreds of millions, to be able to help people avert even a further financial tragedy. Over and above what insurance covers, that we would be able to purchase property from those individuals that then in turn would be designated as green space. Because as we said before, the floodplain has changed and will stay that way for some years to come. Debris removal and cleanup. We've completed out of almost all of them. I think we have less than 200 properties to go that have signed up on the PPDR program. That's a personal property debris removal program that's provided by the government. This is at no cost to the property owner. But I will let you know that if you do get insurance proceeds and your policy provides for debris removal, the state may ask for some of that money to be paid back to the debris removal on your property. But if you had no insurance or no such coverage, it doesn't matter. We still need you to sign up. We still have a lot of properties in the community that have not signed up or opted out of the program, only to find out that they haven't been able to get a contractor to clear their property. So we ask you to please sign up at the PPDR. We have it extended, and we have people wanting to take those calls and put you back in the program. So we have a phone number. It's 505-670-4662. Again, that's 505-670-4662. So to date, if you have not been contacted, please reach out and they will put you on the program. Because as soon as the current properties on the list are completed, they will be demobilizing and leaving town. As we all know, there's plenty of work in other parts of the country. This is a program that was full or that had been stopped. You know, we had deadlines. So if you thought that you've missed a deadline, it's been extended. I just want to make that very clear. So please reach out to us. Also, top of mind is insurance. And so we have been working with the state. The superintendent of insurance has been very active, along with the governor's office, working on the FAIR Act plan. And there are certain policies and certain things being floated through the legislature as we speak on how do we enhance the FAIR Act program. To date, the program is not much of a program, or it's not very fair. It doesn't have a lot of money behind the property value. So we're looking to have that enhanced to between $750 to $1.5 million per property. That is legislation that is currently being floated through the legislature. So we ask for your support in that measure. And what that is that it would be able to insure your property at a reasonable rate, or in some cases maybe underwrite insurance so that you're able to get insurance. Also, there's new measures I know that people in the village understand, and this is primarily and only for the village, that we have a forestry department, that we have a debris removal, we have a thinning ordinance, you know, and this is to make sure that we do have defensible space. But when we have fires as hot as what we've had, a lot of the fire was transferred through the tops of the trees. And so it did help save some homes, but it's not going to be the end all. So there is legislation being worked on right now at a federal and a state level to fund thinning, to take some funding, add to funding for mitigation, but also not just solely look at what does it take to suppress the fire, put the fire out, but what does it take to limit the damage that a fire, and that we can actually fight the fire. And so those are things that are in process as we speak. We've been talking about those since the fire started. We've actually talked about them, if some of you were here during the Little Bear fire. At the time, Congressman Steve Pierce was pushing that. We didn't get any traction. But we have traction now, especially with the California fires. So this is adding to the conversation. So we expect, you know, some mitigation efforts to be codified in this legislative session, and we're going to do our part to make sure that we support that. So we're working hard to have a stronger and better, more resilient Ruidoso 2.0. You know, how do we harden our homes? How do we make sure that it's more defensible? And then how do we make it where we're insurable? So these are things that we're working on and have been working on. So we need your support in Santa Fe on these issues. We're investing in our infrastructure. Public Works will replace nearly 19,000 feet of outdated water lines in the country club area, improving water service and fire protection. Our Water Resource Department is rehabilitating the Upper Canyon surface diversion, and hopefully that's going to be complete the first half of this year. And for those of you that are calling and asking about Grindstone Lake, that's how we're able to take our water rights and move it over into the reservoir that is Grindstone Lake. We're investing in quality of life in parks and recreation. We're rehabilitating Two Rivers Park and constructing the Alto Lake Disc Golf Course. Our new Wingfield Heritage House Museum, which opened last October, has already cataloged over 900 historical items that tell our community's rich history. And so these are things that we've been working on that we're continuing to push forward, because we did have the fires, we did have the floods, but the business of living goes on. And we want to make sure that you remember that. Housing is in full swing. I know we've lost a lot of housing. We have a lot of folks that are still living in hotels, short-term rentals, and we thank those individuals that converted those to long-term that people are living in. We realize they need to have their own home. So housing, the 603 Meacham project should be complete within the next 2 months. That's the property that's on Meacham next to Michael J's restaurant. The beautiful modular homes that are going in over there. Soon we'll have people living in them. Shortly after that, we're hoping the first week of April that we'll have, weather permitting, groundbreaking on a 72-unit apartment complex that we've been working on for several years to be able to get the tax credit incentives and things that we needed for private investment. That will break ground, and hopefully in the next year or so, we'll have 72 units ready for people to move into. That does not mean that we're not stopping, looking for, working with FEMA on the single or double wide mobile homes that we can move in. We have spaces that are allocated, that have been identified, not in the village, but in the downs, that people could move into. So we're working on getting those houses in. We recognize that there still is a big need, and we're still working on that. I want to say thank you to the finance department. Judy and her staff has done unbelievable work because, as most of you have heard, that we were the recipients, allegedly, of $100 million in legislative funding during the last special session. $10 million went to the Mineral and Natural Resource Division, affectionately known as MNERD. $10 million grant went to DHSEM, Homeland Security, and $10 million went to, I believe, the Forestry Department. $70 million was then in the form of a loan to the county and to the village. And in that language has held up us having access to those funds. But we've been able to work, and Judy has worked very diligently with cataloging every expense that we've had, finding the funding, and I will have to say that Michelle Lujan Grisham, the governor, has done a great job in getting funding to us. The state legislators have done a great job in getting in front of those funds so that we make sure we do not harm the village financially. Now, speaking of financially, we have turned in again our budgets. We just had a budget hearing, internal finance committee meeting this last week. And then coming up in a special council meeting, we will adopt those changes from the finance department that recognize a lot of transfers, grants, and other things that our senior administrative staff here has been able to get. And that is what's going into cleaning. And that's basically what we've been doing, is removing damaged homes, keeping our streets clean, trying to repair the waterways, culverts, cleaning. And then we still have the business of the village that goes on every day. Before the fires and the floods, we were shorthanded already. None of that's changed. So our staff is still working at their full capacity, making sure that they do a great job. And I appreciate all the compliments that I get from the community on recognition of what our staff is doing. And so the folks in the community, thank you for reaching out, because it means a lot to our staff. Particularly excited to announce that Ruidoso is gaining recognition as a world-class destination. We've secured the Xterra event for August 2025, a gold event. Xterra is international, worldwide off-road running, biking, swimming. And so they will be holding that here in Ruidoso this coming August. And we have multi-year contract on this, and it's going to be a big thing. It'll be televised worldwide eventually. And then the following year in 2026, we've landed the Ironman competition. So these are worldwide recognized events that we will be holding right here in the village of Ruidoso. Our tourism department was nominated for the Top Hat Award. This is the third consecutive year, showcasing our community's appeal. People don't realize how our team tourism is so effective, that a lot of the state's initiatives with the New Mexico True have been adopted from our program. And so the people that volunteer their time to set on this, they do a wonderful job. Of course, we have professionals that we pay to get on this, but our own agency and then our tourism director do a wonderful job. I want to speak just a minute about the racetrack. We're working every day, all day, on making sure that track reopens this coming Memorial Day. We have had a lot of issues dealing with red tape, as you've all heard. But I feel confident that we'll have it up and running. We have plans. We have funding in place. We're working hand in hand with the state, and we're just waiting on one more approval, as from what I know, from FEMA to get started. The contractor's already been hired. We've already got locations for them to stay. And then we'll get started on removing the culverts, building those back, and then the track surface will be put back in place. So we feel very confident that that's going to happen. Been in direct communication with the track ownership. They're committed. They've not only lost millions, but they're looking to invest millions to stay here. So without your support, we wouldn't be able to get that done. They feel confident that the village and the county and the tribe is behind them as well. That's one thing I'd like to touch on. You know, in tragedies like this, we can stand around and point fingers at one another, our neighbors, who hadn't done what, who should have done this. We're not having that. And so we feel a very strong relationship, kinship, and ever-budding relationship with the tribe and with the county and also the city of Ruidoso Downs. And for that, I would like to say thank you for their diligence in making this happen, because together, working as a region is the only way we're going to make this happen. And I feel like that once we get this, it's already a stronger atmosphere when we're working together, when we're in Santa Fe and in Albuquerque, because so many of the different offices out of Santa Fe have moved to Albuquerque. So we have a lot of, in fact, part of our senior staff is in Santa Fe as we speak. That we develop a lot of recognition from other communities, that they realize that we're making leaps and bounds progress. I know that sounds strange, but when we talk to them, it's like, how did you do this? How are y'all doing that? And it's just from working together. We realize that working together is the fastest and best way to get this done. I know that we've had some questions, and I'll touch on this just because we've had quite a few calls on this, and that is the ICE. You know, that ICE has been stopping people in the community, immigration, and asking for proof of identification. Personally, and with our police chief, he's in the audience, we've reached out to try to get verification. We don't have any firsthand knowledge of that, only hearsay. We have reached out to the federal government. They have said there's nothing that was planned in the community, but that doesn't mean that there hasn't been something somewhere. I'm not saying it hasn't happened. We just don't know of any of it. And so we, as the police department for the village of Ruidoso, that is not our charge. Our charge is health, safety, and welfare. If someone's breaking the law, it doesn't matter if they were born here or if they came in across the border, if they break the law, they'll be dealt with. But we're not looking for those. That's not our purpose. So I just wanted to put that out there because we have had so many calls about it. I want to take a moment to express my deepest gratitude again to the village employees. The dedication to these disasters is unbelievable. I sat up with many of you many straight hours. Saw many of you sleeping in your chairs up against the wall at the emergency operations centers. When called on, you went out, you took care of the problem, you gave us reports, and you did your job. And for that, we are eternally grateful. You have saved our community, and you've saved us millions. And so that is a building block that's going to launch us into 2025. And barring another major catastrophe, we're well set to move forward. Our finances are strong. We have a lot of plans to move forward. We're working with our federal, state, and independent contractors as partners to get these jobs done, concluded, to be prepared when we do have flooding. That's not to say that it can happen, but it's not going to be for our lack of trying that we don't avert it. Again, I want to say a special thank you to people that have answered the phone call, and I can't name all of them, but our governor, Department of Homeland Security, Allie and Ashley have done an unbelievable job in helping us get the paperwork done. Also, John Moon, who is here local with us, who has done an unbelievable amount of work in our favor. I want to thank also the Council of Governments, the New Mexico Southeast Division of Economic Development, Dora Batista, on helping us get grants where we were able to hire individuals that have expertise in working with FEMA. I want to thank our village manager, Ron Sena, Michael Martinez, our deputy manager, on working on getting additional funding, that we were able to go out and hire specialists to work with FEMA to make sure that we get every program that we qualify for, that we maximize the return on that. And I can't say that enough, because so many communities, and all you have to do is look a little further north to our other partner neighbors in the state of New Mexico, that they don't have that kind of diligence. They don't have that kind of expertise. And it doesn't happen by accident. These are things that are planned. We work on exercises. We look for shortcomings and how do we improve on that. So I want to thank you folks. Also, our council, without the council paying attention. And for example, tomorrow we start strategic planning. That's a 2-day, all day. Every department at the village goes through. We look at what our goals were last year. How close did we come? What are our goals for this coming year? Working on budgets. And while it is strenuous, it's tiring, it is an exciting time here at the village, so we know where we're going. We have a roadmap. And so I want to thank Rafael Salas, Joe Eby, Susan Lutterman, Darren Hooker, Dr. Jackson, and Greg Corey for all the diligence that you folks put into the studying that you do, being accessible by the public to get the questions answered that they're asking. We think of that as just everyday business in the village of Ruidoso. But I can tell you firsthand, talking to people in the state of New Mexico, that's not the way it is. So thank you for your attention and doing a great job. When we talk to the community, we know it's tough. Some people lost everything or almost everything. And we're doing the best we can to replace it as quickly as we can. We're there to find you the programs that are going to help you to get back to where you need to be. All you have to do is get up early in the morning and see the highway coming in from Capitan and that area, and there's a lot more traffic there because we've had so many of our folks that have had to move out of the village to find living arrangements. Tularosa, Alamogordo, Roswell, other folks in other places in the valley that people have had to move to. So we want to be able to have a home for you to come home to. There's tremendous amount of things that are working for economic development. Myself and others included have spent time in Albuquerque with the Secretary of Economic Development on ideas, on plans that we've had on the burners for years, reaching out to industry that are low impact to our natural resources, but that add revenue. How do we take waste streams and turn them into revenue streams? People are answering that question for us. What do you do with the pine needles? What do you do with all those kind of things? What can be done? We're finally getting some plans and people that are willing to come in and invest in our community. So those are things that are looking forward to that are bright for 2025. And it's with optimism. The glass is more than half full, people. I mean, we're nowhere near where we could have been. And all you got to do is watch the TV to see if we hadn't been planning. And if the best starts with the people that we hire. And I cannot stress that enough. And people in the community know how hard it is to get good employees, and we have by far the best. And so you're fortunate to have it. But the other thing is that the village as a whole is so supportive of what this administration, what this council, and what this employee base has done. You're informed. We thank you for that. We appreciate it that you tune into the radio show, Monday with the Mayor, every Monday morning from 8 to 10. And ask your questions. Listen to the narrative that we talk about. It gets redundant because we talk about it every day, all day. But some people don't know that, and we want to make ourselves available. It's answering the phone calls that we received today. For example, about ICE. We get the answers for you. We make the phone calls. When you see something, we appreciate you saying something. Potholes, yes, we all have them. And we didn't even know where they're at because we want to get them taken care of when we can. We have a lot of grant money coming in to fix the streets in a more permanent nature. That is going to start as soon as the temperature warms up and we're able to get paving down. So I just want you to rest assured that planning has not stopped. It's never stopped. One thing that this village is great about is that we have comprehensive planning, that everyone in the village had the ability to put their 2 cents in. And believe me, you did. The good news is that we're going to have an updated version of that coming up real soon. Off of that comprehensive plan, we're able to do then master planning. We've done Upper Canyon master planning. We're looking at doing master planning for the White Mountain Sports Complex area. That's just to name 2. But thank you for your input. Our RSVP program, Retired Senior Volunteer Program, that is full. We have so many people that volunteer. We have 15 different committees that the village has. That has anywhere from 5 to 12 members on each committee, from Parks and Rec, Cemetery Board, Housing. God bless the people in the Housing Committee. That's not been an easy one. But that they give their input because they have a vested interest in this community. They own property. They have a job here. They have a love for the community, and that's what makes us different. And so, again, without the community as a whole being supportive of the staff, the village's direction, paying attention, educating yourself on what's happening, when you're not sure, ask a question. Because I promise you, if it sounds illogical, stupid, it is. We have people, we're not always the brightest bulb in the drawer, you know, because happens. We see things, we get misinformation sometime, and we listen to it, we look at it, and if it's not right, we go back to the drawing board. But it's with your input that we're able to move forward. I think I've thanked everybody, and except for my wife, I want to thank Tracy in big bold letters, and I thank you, Tracy, for sticking with us, because we had a lot of, just like everyone else, a lot of hard times. Our times were not nearly as hard as others. But I appreciate your support in making all this happen and always supporting me in the endeavors at the village. So life's tough, but so are you. And we just want to remind you of that. You're not in this alone, and we are moving forward. And again, from where we produce water, we use the water that we own, we treat the water that we use, and we have one of the top wastewater treatment plants in the country. It's always rated in the top 1 or 2%. That's something to be proud of. We have added new people to the program, emergency response department, that's second to none. It's the envy. In fact, our emergency manager was singled out among all emergency managers in New Mexico as emergency manager of the year, as it was our floodplain engineer. So you see what type of quality of work that is being done right here in the village, and we're proud of that. Now, I left time today so that if anybody has any questions, we want to answer them, just like we do on the radio program. And all the information in detail is now posted on the Village of Ruidoso website, so you can go there. It's broke out by departments, okay? And so at this time, I'll entertain any questions, and if I don't know them, I have people here that can help me answer them. Ladies, do you have any questions?
We don't have any on Zoom. I don't know if there's anybody in the audience.
No, I know most all these people, and they've already asked me pretty much everything, I think, unless there's anybody that has a question. Nobody? We are, and still we'll continually be working on our watershed. And how do we we're never going to control the water, but how do we best prepare for it when it gets here? Okay, I don't want you to go to sleep thinking that we're not ever going to have another flood. It's not the case. So we want you to be prepared. And that's the whole plan. And so we have a plan. We did get knocked down last year a couple of times, but we got right back up. Everybody stayed with it. And, we went through a transition. We have a new fire chief. We have a new police chief. Smooth transition. So that is planning. That's not by accident. So we appreciate all the staff in the different departments that we work on. Who's the next in line? How do we educate people? in the program, in the department, so that one day they can take over. Because we're only as good as the employees that run the departments. And I really was hoping that we'd have millions around the world tuning in, but it looks like the home team, and by the home team, you know who you are, is people in the community that call me when the air blower backpack starts up at 7 in the morning. It's the potholes. It's the speeders in front of the school department. It's what are we going to do with the horses and the elk and all those things. And some of those we have plans on for. Others, we're having to figure that out with powers that be.
Mayor,
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I do have a question, and or maybe an idea, and especially for the 72-unit complex.
Mhm.
And, you know, we are moving down the line.
Oh, she's going to give you the microphone, Scott.
Nobody can hear you on Zoom and YouTube if you're not.
You know, everybody, with all the people moving in and all the tourists and the amount of water we use, that's kind of always been one of my big concerns for down the road. And as far as what are we doing as far as conserving our water, and what are we doing as far as capturing and harvesting water, like the new 72-unit complex that'll come in the plans. When they get their permit, will there be like, hey, you got to have a cistern system put in this that's going to capture your water and run it? And same thing I've gone through. We got so many buildings over 5,000 square foot here that 1 inch of rain would bring, you know, thousands of gallons that we can start conserving water and saving water. Not just more drilling and things like that, but I would just like to see us become a environmentalist type where we're doing things to, hey, let's start capturing water, where like all our toilets, like everybody even in this building washing their hands and flushing the toilets, hey, it could be harvested water. And
Well, and Scott, you're exactly right. And we've started this conversation years ago, and it's hard to get traction sometimes. With water right law in the state of New Mexico, in Arizona, our states are the oldest water law states in the United States. People fight over water, and they want to know who owns that water that falls on your roof. And then, so we're working on that, but we're also working on other things that are in the works at this point that and I know I have to ask people to trust us that we have been working on them and we have been gaining ground. Some other things that people will understand is without management of the forest, and by management, I mean selective, responsible harvesting. You know, our forest here years ago was estimated to be able to have 50 million board feet of lumber removed a year. The maximum amount was 30 million. And then since the late 70s, nothing's been done. So we're working on legislation and funding. How do we thin that? How do we get rid of the salt cedars? How do we get rid of a lot of the straws that are in that ground? And that it makes it better for our watershed, better watershed management. We've looked at different types of situations through the sewer process, because right now, just an average, because it goes up and it goes down, we return 1.5 million gallons to the river, okay, that we collect from different watersheds. One of them is up there by you, the Eagle Creek watershed, the Ruidoso watershed. And so the village is maintaining our water rights. We are the only people that I'm aware of in the whole valley that is metered. And we have third parties that check our numbers, that make sure that we're only using what the village owns. And we don't use all of our water rights. We have done studies statewide, and in fact, comparing them nationwide, that the village of Ruidoso residents are some of the most water conscious citizens in the United States. That we started zero-scaping. You know, we don't have irrigation, water, sprinkler systems in properties anymore. And If you do see one that's watering, it's because they have a private well, and that's a private property issue. But you're right, we have worked on that. We need to do a better job in hotels. Nobody likes to go to an expensive hotel and have a low-flow aerator on your shower head, you know. But those are some of the things that we're doing. Educating the citizens, we need to do a better job on water use, on jacuzzis, on hot tubs with all of our short-term rentals. So tomorrow night at 5:30 at the Convention Center, this is another public outreach. We want to know what the public says. It's about short-term rentals. We're taking input so that it can be distilled down into what the community wants, what the community needs, what the community will accept. Because it is a two-edged sword, short-term rentals. It has a lot of revenue. It employs a lot of people in this community. But it also comes with the other side that is a little bit testy at times. You know, I have short-term rentals that come in every weekend next door. But, you know, once they understand, and I understand, we all seem to get along just fine. To help with that, we've purchased a new software system for short-term rentals. It will be going into effect in June, I believe. That keeps better tracking of complaints, of all kinds of things, so that we can keep that data and then better enforce those things with the property owners and the management companies. But you're right. We do need to talk about water, the cisterns. We've looked at that, talked about it. We've got other questions on how do we, and at one point when we looked at it, the state of New Mexico, the Office of State Engineer Water, that's who rules the water in the state of New Mexico, said that that water doesn't belong to that property. If it rains on it, it's supposed to be absorbed into the watershed and then thus into the system. So those are things that we're working on. Some things seem totally obvious, and why aren't you doing it? Why haven't we been doing it? And a lot of times, just like everything else, you kind of need to be pushed into being more conservative on conservation. Awareness, and people that live here are very aware of, you know, that water is king. Without water, we don't have anything. Your property's not worth much. So we are working on those things, and we have some wonderful things on the horizon I can't really go into at this point. That it's in private conversations. You know, I don't really have an NDA signed, but we promised that we won't talk about it. It's industry stuff on how do we conserve water, how do we produce water out of before you didn't even think about it. You know, and then it's not that we don't have water all the way around us. You know, in the Tularosa Basin, it's just very brackish. What do you do about that? Over in Fort Stanton and other areas, there's water. And so what do we do? How do we help our surrounding communities? As most people around the village understand, we have smaller communities that have their own water production systems that were totally wiped out by the fire. Cedar Creek water system. We have other areas that have run out of water because they haven't maintained their water. Fawn Ridge is one. And so they're looking to the village to provide. Well, we won't take on anything that we can't provide. Okay, we do the engineering. We have a water resource management specialist that she's very good at keeping track of our water use. And then our 5-year accounting that we have to track every gallon of water that we have. So you're exactly right. I think that we need to manage the forest, get rid of all the straws in the ground, get rid of these salt cedars. That's going to take funding. But during that process, we develop another industry, a little micro industry. And so those are things that we want to make sure that our locals are able to take advantage of.
Yeah, that was one of the greatest things after the Little Bear Fire. As you know, my property, I had a football field of those salt cedars, and the state came in and took them all out.
Yeah.
And that was the greatest thing, you know, that happened on our land. But it is a great thing because New Mexico, actually, in talking to the engineers in the state, is one of the only states, there's very few, that you are allowed to capture water.
Oh, and see that, I know that's gone back and forth, and so we're looking at new building codes. We're in the process of adopting the Chapter 54 rewrite, and we have, but there's going to be additions to that on how do we harden, how do we better thin against fire. Water will be one of those.
Yeah. because we're a harvesting water state. We're allowed to do it.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Yes, ma'am? Gina?
Will the water that is to be taken from the Hollywood Gauge Point be used to run the wastewater treatment plant? Or will it still require to take water away from the river?
That question is a misnomer. It's not even, that's not the way it's even done. We have surface water rights on the Rio Ruidoso that we take. We have water well rights we take from the Eagle Creek watershed that is put into the water system, okay? And part of that is that well that you mentioned that is part of our water rights. And I know where that question's coming from. And so we rest that well. We don't even use that well that much. And so once that water is processed and cleaned to near drinking quality, there has to be a few things that are done to the water to be considered potable. You know, you have to have some chlorine put in it and a few other things. And it's dumped right back in the river. So to the person that asked that question, remember the average 1.5 million gallons that we bring in from all of our water wells, different watersheds that are then put into the river. So that question is not an accurate question. Anybody else? And again, I just want to reiterate, the village, if you had a gas pump, the village is the only one that has a meter on that gas pump, okay? That it's not just us checking it, it's the state engineer's office that wants to see it. It's everybody that wants to see it. I don't know of anywhere else in this whole valley that has that same restriction on it, and I think we all should. And so thank you for asking that question, because a lot of these have been brought up that put that on the front burner. And so we're going to be making sure that all of us engage in conservation, Mr. Scott, not just us, the ones that everybody can point the finger to, but it's going to be to everyone. And we get these every time the village comes up for renewal on a water lease, we get objections, protestants. And I'm never more amazed than to see so many Village of Ruidoso names on there. And when I call these folks, they don't even know what they signed up for. A piece of paper was stuck in front of them. They signed it because they felt obligated. And so those are things that we deal with that really, as the public, you don't know about. But we're here protecting what the village is paid for, what the village is entitled to, and then we're very resourceful on how much of it we do use. Any other questions that I can be harsh about?
The person did say thanks for the clarification.
Okay, thank you. Maybe I wasn't talking to that person that is always writing nasty things about me on social media. So again, I just want to thank the tribe, because we're working together on mitigation efforts on Highway 70, on the salt fire. And I want to say thank you to the businesses that have chose to rebuild, none more than Foxworth Galbraith, that have invested millions of dollars in rebuilding that business so that we have our own lumberyard. They could have cut and run. I want to thank Xterra that signed a multi-year contract only for us to have a fire right afterwards that did not cut and run. They believe in it, and they believe in this community. They've spent some time here, and they've been all over the world, people, and they're very impressed with us. That we do what we say we're going to do, and we do it in a good way. And we're happy about it. So I appreciate that you've done. And then the citizens that have endured the pain, the suffering, and people, I know just from watching the fires in California on TV, it was disturbing to me. So I know it was disturbing to those that lost it all. PTSD is a real thing. And so we appreciate that. And again, as always, if you need help, call. We've had mental professionals here since the fire. And if we don't have one here, then we'll see what we can do to help you find someone. But don't go it alone. If you have a question, reach out. And yes, we have helped people that are not in the village limits. You know, our charge is to help the people in the village, but we have an obligation to help our neighbors too. And that's the way the village has always been since I've been a part of it, is it's all of us together. It's not me, it's we. And so reach out. And again, people reaching out to their neighbors, helping neighbors. And I know it's been stressful for a lot of you that you've had people staying with you that you thought might be for a few days, a week. 6 months later, they're still there. And we appreciate what you're doing. The village has been very proactive in relaxing building standards, codes, so that we can put RVs on properties that previously weren't allowed. We understand this is a special circumstance. If you can imagine, what's going on in California, and they're talking about repealing all these unbelievable restrictions that they have. Well, we don't have unbelievable restrictions, but sometimes they seem that way. So we have streamlined this village over the years that if you're building, if you have questions, do not be intimidated. Come in and just ask for an appointment. People will sit down with you and talk with you, I promise you. They're here to serve you, and they're happy about it. Are there any other questions? Y'all making it way too easy. Okay? All right. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for those that were listening, and this will be on the website. Again, tune in to Monday with the Mayor, 1490 AM radio. Soon we will have an FM station, Lord willing. Because all the other stations have been purchased by one entity, they kind of have to give up something. So we have an ability to work out a deal. And so we'll be able to better communicate. Also, the Chamber of Commerce has the annual Lincoln County Days this February the 5th in Santa Fe. If you can go, do. It's always a pleasure to see our regular folks that aren't involved in the city administration, working for the village, a contractor for the village, just everyday folks showing up to see what's happening and get involved with your legislators. We'll take you on a trip through the Roundhouse and you'll see just how confusing the building is. By design, I add. So we appreciate that if you would show up and be a part of the village that is yours. Together we can make it happen, and as always, we're stronger together. So again, thank you for attending tonight, and as always, we're here for you if you need us. Good night.